I show coaches and consultants and authors how to build a top tier income from speaking super fast. And they can even create a globetrotting lifestyle from that as well if they want.
So welcome back, everybody, to another outstanding episode of the Everything is Influence podcast, where on every single episode, we dig into the 4 levels of influence. Level 1, how does somebody influence themselves, their values, their discipline, how they think, their influences in their early years, how they become who they are. And then level 2, how do they see the process in sales, transferring what's inside of them to other people to get them to take action? How do they do that in groups? And also, how do they do that through process of scale, through speaking and stages, in a way that really creates influence at scale to get our messages out into the world. And so it is without any further ado, and with great honor, I get to introduce Moira. How are you?
I'm so good. I see you avoided saying my surname.
Yes. I was thinking, like, I looked at it, because it pops up here on the screen. And I was thinking, I glanced to Moira and I said, I'm just not gonna say that. So if you could give us the whole entire name.
I'll happily will. But when I first started speaking, somebody suggested that I change my name, that people weren't going to be able to pronounce it. And they suggested I called myself Moira Ní Ghallachoir. And I kind of thought, I kind of sound like a rap artist or something. But then as it transpired, as I started on my speaking career, every time I went to go on stage, people would go, Moira Ní Ghallachoir, and I ended up being called Moira Ní anyway. So funny story. But yes, thank you so much for having me here, Eli. I'm really grateful, and I can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Yeah. It's speaking of my real name is Eli Will Hyde, Wilhide, but I changed it to Wilde just because it's easier, and I love Oscar Wilde, one of my favorite writers. And I like this whole concept being wildly influential, not hiding. Eli will hide. So that's it, and that goes into kind of what we're going to dig in today. In all these episodes, it's about, we get to create ourselves. I remember being years ago at an acquaintance's house, and this guy was like a hippie guy. And I was mentioning that I was going to change my name. And he said that he had a friend, had a 3-year-old child and had no name. It's like, well, it's like he should just get to name himself. He changes his name every week. That kid is probably currently insane, but I thought, what a cool concept. So we get to create ourselves. Super cool. So if you could let everybody know, we're going to reverse engineer as we do on this show, but let people know, like, what are you up to in the world right now? Essentially, what do you do that creates influence in the world? What's your business? What's it all about?
So how lots of coaches, consultants get to a certain point in their business and they're thinking, I need to influence more people. I need to get on more stages. I need to speak. Well, I show coaches and consultants and authors how to build a top tier income from speaking super fast. And they can even create a globetrotting lifestyle from that as well if they want.
A top tier income while traveling the world through speaking on stages.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. How do you do that for people?
How do I do that?
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, I really point out to people how there are opportunities to get in front of their ideal audiences all around them. And I think that I really kind of bust the myths with people that they have to be like famous influencers already or have massive profiles before they can start getting on stages and making as much as 100K from one stage, and doing it while having a really amazing lifestyle, especially now that we've got this virtual opportunity for us all.
Mm-hmm. So you show people how to book these stages and get out there and start speaking. You help them speak and craft a talk and all of that.
How to craft a talk, a high converting talk, how to create an offer for the stage, and what type of offer is ideal for certain stages, because you can get like all sorts of ways you can make an offer, but ideally I get them good at one offer to begin with, and once they can see what they can do with that, then they start changing their offers and doing different things themselves, but really get them going on creating one good offer that they can see how they could add an additional 6 or even multiple 6 figures to their bottom line.
Oh, wow. That's significant. And these people are they speakers already? Are you training them in the speaking too?
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that question? I think that many people are speakers already, but just because they're not on a big stage in front of thousands of people, they don't necessarily take on the identity of a speaker, but they're delivering countless like live trainings to their community. They have their own Facebook group where they're always delivering trainings there. They possibly do speaking engagements for their local networking groups. Some of them even have podcasts and wouldn't consider themselves a speaker. And I'm like, well, if you're speaking, like 3-4 times a week, I'm like, that makes you a speaker, but you haven't actually just taken on that identity or even putting energy into saying, how can I really make this pay?
Awesome. Yeah, the identity it's a big part of it. Stepping into that as a platform leader of any type. So how did you come into this? Were you always a speaker? You've got such a lovely cadence about you and this awesome accent, which is really endearing. What were you like in speaking for a long time? How did you get into this?
Absolutely not. I'd be like one of these people, if they mentioned something to do with speaking, I would turn and walk the other way, say, I'm not doing it. But when I started my business way back in like 2015, I was a youth worker living in London, making about 30,000 a year. And I had one of those moments where I was just like, there has to be more to life than this. So cut a long story short, I decided to leave London, move back to Ireland, didn't really know what I was going to do. And then when I moved back here to Ireland, I just fell in love with the beauty and the amazing place, the community, the language, the culture. And more than any, I literally turned into this outdoor adventurist overnight. But what I saw all around me was businesses closing, people being really down. It was the middle of a recession. And I was like, oh my God, this place is like the most amazing place in the world. And even though I grew up there, I never saw it through these eyes who had got to see the world and lived in different places. So here I was at 36 going, I can do something about this. I can get some like visitors to come here. So my first business, Eli, was I got together with all of the local adventure providers of my local area, the rock climbers, the kayakers, the mountain climbers, the hikers. And I said, I'll go get you guys customers. And I just did it because I saw a way I could help. So I started doing it. And within a year, we had hosted hundreds of people in this small town. There were like busloads of students arriving. There was helicopters arriving on the local football field. So it got really big, really fast. But big in terms of lots of people coming, but not big in terms of me making any money, because I just started out as a hobby. Like, here's something cool I can do. I want to make a difference. And then when I really sat down and thought about it, I was just like, the questions that I'm getting the most is, how did you get those customers? How did you make those sales? Where did you find those people? And then I was just like, oh, wow, they don't really know how to get customers. What if I start teaching them how to get customers themselves? And then I ended up with another dilemma because I lived in a really small place. And I'm not joking, Eli, I live in a cottage beside a mountain. And there were days where the network is so bad here. There were days where I was trying to make sales calls, standing on my windowsill with my phone up like this, trying to get some signal. It was that bad. So I was like, I need to find a faster way to do this. And I knew speaking was a thing because I was starting to like connect with like coaching groups and different things like that. And then I saw an opportunity to speak in my local area. And I was like, I'm going to get on that stage. I don't know how I'm going to get on that stage. And I did. I, got the opportunity. Then
how'd you get on the stage? How'd you get?
I was literally driving home from a networking event and I saw the sign and I thought it was like a local business conference, which is so unusual here. And I kind of like braked and looked and I thought, okay, I know where that office is of the organizer. So I just turned my car, drove to the office, knocked on the door, introduced myself. And I said, I think I should be on your stage. And he was just like, right, why? And I, gave him my pitch and he was just like, done. And I was like, wow, okay. So I kind of walked out of the office going, what am I going to talk about? I haven't really thought this through. So cut a long story short, I got an opportunity to speak that day. I'd say if this was the microphone, Eli, show me a marker. If this is the microphone, there was no fancy stuff. My hand was shaking so badly that I had to hold the mic against my chin. I was that nervous.
So what inspired that bold move then? You had never done this. You just said, I'm going to turn around the car and do it, but you had never done it. You were scared. What inspired that? You knew deep down you could do it, or like what kind of drives that? Because a lot of people that, as you said, are speakers, but they're not doing it. They have fear, they have insecurity, they have doubt, they're stuck. What is it that allowed you to have a breakout moment?
Yeah, for sure. I knew I had a message to share with people. I could see
What's the message?
At the time, I was helping people with sales. So I could see that people were feeling pushy and didn't want to be salesy. So therefore, they were just leaving money on the table everywhere they went and being really polite about it, but not being able to inspire people to work with them. So I started showing people, why don't you just start inspiring people to make a yes or to say yes or to say no to your programs instead of trying to get them across the line and trying to nail this and nail that. And like showing people how they could just like get people excited passionate about their offers. So that was my message. And I knew that if I got in front of a room full of people and just made sales easier for them and show them some ways that I was able to do it, that I was going to make a difference from doing that. And of course, I wanted clients. I was also very hungry. I think I had that hunger that Les Brown talks about. You got to be hungry.
Hungry. I used to listen to that every single morning before my talks. I used to listen to that every single day. Every day. I listened to that one where I made it an MP3 where he's, in the big arena. I listened to it with a friend the other day talking about, picking up the four tops and driving around and being in that studio. You got to be hungry. That's it. So you were hungry.
I was hungry. I was hungry. I had a real urgency that people really needed to know this. Like I knew I could make a difference.
This is interesting. The urgency wasn't to make money. The urgency was mission focused for impact.
Yeah. Cause there's this, I could see this, it became so apparent to me when I moved home, like just this cycle of financial survival that was all around me. And I was just like, this doesn't have to be, this is not that hard. Like we can make this easier. And I really wanted to wake people up. And I actually created a speaking tour shortly after that called Waking the Giants. And it was about waking people up to the possibility of what their businesses could do for themselves, for their lives, for their families. And I got on a real mission about that because it was 26 counties in Ireland. And I said to myself, if I could speak in every county in Ireland, not only that, the biggest reward for me was going to be that I would see every county in Ireland. Because I was just like, oh my God, that sounds like the funnest thing ever. And I basically got to see the entire country of Ireland from doing that. So I spoke in 19 counties, which I think that's a really great way to get into the speaking, to get into momentum with speaking, is to choose one track and say, you know what, like you could speak in every state in America. I know that's huge, but to do that and then to be able to say that you did that, what would that be, like 52 gigs? That's not that many. You've probably spoken on all of them already. Or even if you just take, like, I want to speak in every chamber of commerce in the Northwest or something like that. I think if people are trying to get momentum with speaking, to choose something like that, and then it makes it more about about the mission that you're on, as opposed to this thing that you have to do.
Yeah, the way that we did it is there'd be about a dozen of us, and we get dropped off in a city. Say that Tony Robbins was going to do a UPW in Miami or New York or whatever. There'd be about a dozen of us in a city, and we'd have like certain phone area codes that we're supposed to stick to, but we got referrals into other areas. And initially we were like Navy SEALs, like door knocking, all that stuff, and going out there on a mission, bigger than ourselves. And a lot of it too, we wanted to impress Tony. That was certainly it for me, wanting to, be the top on the leaderboard and all of that, and going out there with this mission. And we had all gone through an experience. So it wasn't just about making money. Like I had an experience with this man, and I absorbed some principles that I believed lived inside of him. And I spoke with the belief that if you get exposed to the principles inside of this man, your life will become better. And it's like, I want to expose the world. And so regardless if I ever met Tony or anything, and obviously I have at this point, but regardless if I never talked to him, I was on a mission to expose people to tools and show them what was possible. And you've done the same thing. And it's cool. You've got this sense of like, homage to, Ireland, and you want to see it and all that. When you were traveling, did you get paid speaking gigs to these places? Like, how did that work? So like what we did, and that's why I'm creating this context, we had people call out for us, and I would do like 2 talks a day, but it was like chamber of commerce, real estate, sales-based organizations, because I was selling salespeople. Those were the easiest people for us to sell because they had clear incentive to be better at sales because they were, in communication. So how did you kind of contact these people? Like, what was the vision? You did one of these things and you said, you got this dream to speak at all these counties. You call, did you get booked? Was it paid? Kind of walk us through that if you can.
Yeah. So I mostly focused on free stages, and then I moved then into paid stages. So I would speak on stages where somebody had sold 500, 1,000 tickets. But my favorites were finding small events that had 20 to 30 people. And, those are my favorites. And I realized that they're all over Ireland. And I was just like, they must be all over the world. So then I started to kind of dream. I think that's what I teach this thing in my talent called Dream, Decide, Reside. I used to start dreaming about, stages that I wanted to speak on. And then I would make a decision that not that I was going to speak on that stage, but that I was going to go to that place. And then when I had the date and it was actually really going to happen, then I started looking for opportunities around that. And then when you're approaching places, instead of saying, hey, do you want to fly me over to Ireland? I was going anyway. So my approach was, well, listen, I'm here in the country anyway. I'm going to be in your area between these dates. I'd love to come and do a free presentation for your group if you think that would be of value to them. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, people said yes to that. And then I started to see how I could just go around the world doing that. And that's what I did for about 3 years. And literally 2 years after I discovered speaking, and I would say discovered speaking, I closed about $500,000 in sales from free stages and a couple of paid ones, but mostly free.
Yeah. So you'd get on a free stage at a company or organization. And would you make a direct sale pitch like, hey, buy my 2K thing at the back of the room or book a call with me? What is that process?
Yeah, predominantly I was offering a free, a complimentary consultation with me, but it was really speaking with at the intention of generating leads. So I was building my list. And the list that I built was amazing because everybody had heard my story, either maybe shook my hand or we even had a drink with after the event. So I ended up with this really awesome list. And then I would take people that were particularly serious, and then we would have a session to see if we were the right fit for each other. And that's how I.
How long are those sessions that you do? Because that can get time consuming to do all those sessions, I would imagine.
Yeah, it did. But the only thing that I was really doing to generate leads was speaking. So I was focused on getting at least 2 speaking engagements a week. So it really worked out perfectly. And then when it started to get too much, I just changed what I was doing and then started making direct offers.
Yeah, it's after I did the event with Tony 2020, when COVID hit, I spoke on that stage, 23,000 people, and it was the first big virtual event. So all the other big time coaches, all the 8-figure coaches that were in the space, like the biggest names, either called me personally to ask me, some questions about it, or asked me to speak at their event. And that's how we did 7 figures off of that, outside of the Tony thing. Just people asked me to speak, and I was voted the top speaker at all the different events. And even some people that you and I know in common spoke on those same stages, but rocked it, just added value. And I did in the middle of my presentation a hard seed where I walk people through how people get in touch with me and how much my course was. And I say, yeah, it's just this, and people get these results. And so people just said, hey, that thing that you mentioned, can I buy it? And we sent them a link, and 7 figures later, I was like, well, that was pretty easy through speaking, but I had a direct call to action inside of a story, inside of a case study, inside of a training. So it's like kind of meta is how we did it. So you mentioned in your talk, and I'm loving, just because I know a lot of people listen to this are wanting to influence a much bigger way, just so they can kind of see the ingredients. You need to have a capacity to reach out to humans that have groups. You need to be able to say some things to them to get booked in front of their group. You need to have a signature talk. You need to have a call to action. You need to have an offer, and you got to be able to sell them. So that's kind of the moving parts.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I think that a lot of speakers think that they need to have multiple talks. I used the one talk for almost 3 years because that was my message. Nothing changed, nothing majorly changed other than the stories I was telling about the clients that I had worked with. They just kept getting bigger and better, but more or less. And then I would change. Sometimes people would say, "Oh, can you talk about this or can you talk about that?" I'd be like, "Yeah," but I would do it as in I would incorporate it. I would never change my presentation. And then when I stopped saying, when our organizers, well, some organizers just get they just want, no, can you talk about this one thing? And I'm like, yeah, I stopped saying, yeah, I'll put a whole section in it. I just started to reference it. So, I'd never change my presentation, which then gives you a chance to get good at one piece of content. And then I think that that's how real momentum starts. I think if you trying to come up with different talks all the time, you're kind of saying who am I today, as opposed to this is who I am and this is where I'm going.
I want to see your talk.
Sure.
I still want to see it. I'll be in London in a couple of weeks, but I'll be over there a lot this year. I'll love to see you live. That's super cool. So what were you doing before you got into this niche? Did you have a business. You were in London. You had moved back. What were you doing before this?
Yeah, so I was a youth worker directly before I moved here, and then I traveled for a while before that. And then before that, when I came out of college, I was a door-to-door salesperson.
Oh,
I did
okay.
that for like a year. It is funny,
What were you selling? What were you selling?
I was I would say encouraging selling people on a subscription to a charity that was helping animals or helping people in the third world. And I did it for
Mm,
a year. And kind of similar, we'd get dropped off in a certain place
yep.
every day, and we'd have a postcode in the street, and we would go around and we would speak to about 50. I would speak to about knocking about 50, 55 doors, and I'd be looking for like 10 people to say yes out of that. And I
What
got
was your
some.
pitch? What'd you say? Do you know what you said?
Well, it was like, the first part of it was just smile, eye contact, enthusiasm. Like that's all you needed. And I just had that in bucket loads. So
Yeah.
mostly I just stood on people's doorsteps having what I call the crack. And the crack means having fun. That's an Irish word. It's not like narcotics or anything, but I'd stand on people's doorsteps and just have fun with them. And yeah, I was the top salesperson very quickly. We used to have this bell that we'd ring at the end of every day if we like hit our quota. And yeah, I was seriously ringing that bell every day, and it was so much fun. But I realized
Mhm.
that standing at all those porches or all those doors, like sometimes the whole family would come out and say, "Oh, let's hear our pitch,"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Okay," and like you would give the whole thing, and then give them reasons to buy and give them reasons to invest. But mostly just having fun with people and getting to know them, and yeah, telling stories about their neighbors.
Wow. That's cool. It's a theme in sales training these days. I mean, old school sales training was like be super excited and all pumped up. And that with high ticket selling, I think a lot of people have been burnt out with that. So I get asked this a lot, like kind of how should you be? And I tell people it's like I think being overly excited is not good these days, but at the same time, if it's authentic, like it's a superpower. And I'm naturally an excited person. I get like genuinely excited. And I think that there's this sense of people trying to fake it, trying to fake enthusiasm doesn't work. Also people that are excited trying to downplay themselves. So neither works. It's that authenticity, and you obviously had that. So that was kind of your first sales gig.
It was, and what's key about that? I think, I believe I have natural enthusiasm, but I have
Yeah.
way more natural enthusiasm if I really believe in something. And I think
Hmm.
that's a big problem when it comes to sales, when people don't really believe in what they're doing, don't really believe in what they're selling, or don't believe that what they're doing is right. That if you truly believe in it, that natural enthusiasm just like it's just oozing out of you. And I think that's what sells more than anything. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I sold so well when I was doing those doors, because I really believed in it. I was like a graduate of like social care and psychology and like all about helping people. But
Well,
then when I got to know the company more, I didn't like the ethics that were behind it. And then I
yep.
completely lost any interest. I was just like, I can't sell this. I'm done. And I walked
Yeah.
away. So I think that's the most important thing, and you can't fake that type of enthusiasm because it's coming from your heart. Then, you're truly on a mission.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, in companies that we train. And I just posted this last night on Facebook. We took a company from 60 grand a month to 2 million a month. They just hit last month. But it's like everybody gets down, and a company person like me is like reading over past testimonials, just getting reassociated to why you're doing what you're doing. If you're in sales or just another door, it can begin to get a little bit mundane. When I was even working for Tony, I would be at those events at the customer service booth, and Tony's, I think, the best. I'm obviously like the biggest Tony fan ever, but some people he's saying the F word a lot. Some people get a little hotspot, or he's really intense, or the room's cold. So we get a lot of complaints, and I realized like the more I was affected or infected by those complaints, it would take away my certainty, and then I wouldn't be as good on the next sales call. So it became up to me to manage my focus and get myself associated to the bigger mission. Because if it's just another sales call, when we focus on the complaints, because all companies have complaints, everybody in the coaching space, like everybody gets refunds or unhappy clients. Like it's, nobody is 100%. But it's because, and some people are just crazy. Like it could be just the person. And so like it's up to us to keep ourselves fully associated. And so you had this genuine belief in what you were doing. absolutely key. Did you like think on that every day? Or I mean, with the charity, it's obviously you have to be connected to it.
If your sales aren't like, if you're not making an average conversion of about 20% and you know what you're doing, and it's like, I always like ask my clients, do you really believe in this thing that you're selling? Do you really believe in, the fact that you can really deliver the results that you're talking about? And often, like, it'll come down to something like they'll say, I don't believe that it's worth the price I'm paying, or I don't believe that, I'm afraid of this. And then they're usually like, it's just a little tweak. You're like, is that something you can believe in? And they're like, yeah, I can believe in that. And usually that's when people go off and they've had this sales drought and they close 5 clients in one go. That's what I've found.
That is key. And I think we all lose that no matter how good the product or service is sometimes, even if it's ourselves. And sometimes that's the hardest thing for a speaker. Even for myself, when I was selling Tony, I mean, I was the best at it. But then when I started selling myself, I would kind of collapse. It'd be like, well, for me to come in for a day for Tony, as a trainer, they can send in a trainer, it's 30 grand. They say, well, but I'll do it for you for 10. Actually, because I'm new, let me do it for 5. Actually, you know what? I'll pay you and I'll give everybody free coaching and I'll just, maybe a testimonial if you think I'm worth it, but I'll work. Let me pay you. So I just continue to collapse and collapse and collapse when it was me. And I think a lot of us do that. It's like we all have our own insecurities and fears. So you got into sales. Were you doing selling before? Like what was, did you go to university? What did you go to university for? What was it?
Yeah, I did. I did social care, psychology, and criminology, of all things. I wanted to save the world. And then when I got out of university, I was like, I tried to get all these jobs in the field that I was supposed to work in, and I didn't. And that's when I saw a personal ad in a newspaper saying, "Are you enthusiastic and like people?" and all this. And I was just like, well, that's me. And that was when I got the door-to-door sales job, and they never told me what the job was the entire, and I kept going, but what is the job? And then at the last minute it says, oh, it's knocking on doors. And I was just like, okay. And I didn't tell anyone in my family for like a year what I was doing, and I was driving this brand new car, and they were like, Moira's doing so well. But I was just like, well, I don't know if I can say that I spent all that time in university and now I'm knocking on doors. But I think more than anything, I was having the time of my life. It was so much fun, and for me that was the most important thing.
Yeah. So these 4 levels of influence, it's like how you see influence in the world. But, I want to take a moment and just explore like kind of the level 1, your psychology, because even talking to you now, I mean, you're such a light, you're so genuinely heart-centered and enthusiastic. And so fun to be with. Have you always been that way? Like, what do you think?
That's just for today. That's just for you today.
Just for today. Just for me. I appreciate it. The psychology piece of always being excited. For some people, it's, they do get down. They do get frustrated. Like, what do you do when you get down? Or, even if you're successful door knocking, you don't get 100%. Some people are mean. You do a lot of rejection. Like, how do you internalize that? What do you make it mean? How do you stay positive in the face of adversity?
Well, I definitely think whatever I was doing 20 years ago is not what I would do today if I felt like frustrated about anything. But I think it's really important to focus on the things that I love and the things that are working, because I think it's too hard. It's so easy when you get to a certain level of success to just see how the goalpost keeps moving and to focus on what's not working, as opposed to, well, look at everything I've done to get here. So I have to constantly remind myself that, I'm just a girl from a really small town in Donegal who, got this idea. And then, next thing I'm traveling the world, speaking on stages and having the time of my life. In fact, and my business is making multiple 6 figures. Like, that alone is like and there's nobody in my family who's ever done anything like that. So I also have to remember that. And I'm always saying, okay, what is the next piece that I need to learn? What is the other part of who I'm becoming? What is the next thing? Because if I can't reach something, then I think that there's something in me that I haven't touched on yet. And I don't know about you, but it's like at every 2 or 3 months, there's something. So I think that you're especially if your business is growing fast, that you have to keep looking at the things that have worked, why they worked. And they worked usually because of who I was being at the time, not because of what I was doing.
Where you're being, not because what you're doing or saying. That's powerful. Do you have a morning routine? What's the first thing you do when you get up?
So it changes a bit seasonal, so it does. But the one I have at the moment is like I've created my own version of the miracle morning. Because I love waking up and having like a miracle morning style ready for me to go. But these days it's more reflective and it's more spiritual than it ever has before. So I'm not doing like, just like affirmations and things like that. I'm actually looking more at my fundamental truths as opposed to saying things that I'm not really sure that I believe in. Like, what are the things that the opinions I have or the thoughts that I have that are holding me back? I really look at those and really dig into myself as opposed to somebody giving me, oh, just say this over and over again and see if that works, that kind of thing. So I feel like I'm really trying to get to know myself on a more spiritual level these days. And my morning routine is kind of is based around that. And that involves yoga, meditation, reading, journaling, all that good stuff. But it's my version.
I love it. What did you have for breakfast?
I had gluten-free toast and a boiled egg.
Nice, nice. You seem pretty healthy. So when I mention the word sales or influence, how do you see that? What comes to mind for you? Like, what is that? How do you see the process of sales? Like, what is it? What is sales to you?
I think that sales is like, finding a place where we can move forward together from. And if I'm speaking to somebody and they're interested in working with me, it's really finding that place where we can kind of take off from. That's what sales is to me. And it's like, they inspire me with the goals that they have, and I inspire them with the possibility to achieve that they can achieve those goals. And that's really how I've always approached sales. And I'm very, if it doesn't feel good to me, as in literally my body doesn't feel good, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, then I'm like, this isn't right. But if it's a hell yes and it's an all systems go, like, we're doing this, or they're going to have to find a very, very, very good reason to not want to do it, because I will really want to encourage them and be their cheerleader to make sure that they get what they want. And that if I see somebody's potential, that they can really do it, like especially when it comes to speaking, because people are like, can I really do this? And then often that's when I get people saying to me like how much they're speaking already, whether it's in their trainings and their podcasts and their clubhouse rooms, all of those things. And I'm like, well, you're doing it already, but they just don't see that. And I'm like, well, how about we take what you're doing already and you get paid for it. And I mean paid. What I love about the free speaking gig model is that people think it would be awesome to get paid a fee to speak. And it's a dream for many people. Like say like Mel Robbins, for example, she gets paid like $55K to speak at an event for an hour or whatever she does. So I spoke at a summit last year that, I was promised hundreds of people, and there was like less than 10 people when I arrived at the gig. And over the course of the last 12 months, that's created 6 figures for me. And, it's like, that's like being able to share with people that this is what you can do. Then like often I'm just like painting a picture for people for their own, for things that they want to do themselves anyway.
Awesome. By selling a direct offer or an offer from stage for a call, you've made 6 figures from that engagement.
Yes.
Wow. That's awesome. Amazing. And so, you are selling now, not door to door, but at scale through events and speaking. And so you've got, a signature talk, and you tell people they can book a call with you. And then what is it you offer now? When you speak on stage, you show other people to book on stage. So it's very meta. It's like, hey, here's how you can do exactly what I'm doing. Yeah.
So I've really moved away from that offer probably for the last year. And because, I wanted to scale my business. And as you get, as your business grows more, you realize how much more time you want and how much more you value your time. So now I do a monthly challenge where my offer then on any stage is a ticket to come and spend 5 days with me. And I don't offer sales calls anymore, or I don't offer any of those sessions anymore, unless, I get a referral, or unless somebody finds me and I particularly like them and I want to share with them what speaking can do for their business, then that's different. But when I'm out there generating leads, I'm generally getting people to my list so that I can then invite them to my monthly challenge, which I think is so important, the way the virtual world is set up, especially if you're speaking. So you can do all this speaking and all this networking, but then you've got to have ways to expose yourself to the audiences that you're adding to your list and these new people. Even with on your social media, you have posts all the time. I think it's so important to have other ways where you can be sharing your content. So that's why having like a monthly conversion event or a monthly webinar or something like that, I think that's key. And in fact, if I was to look back at one mistake that I feel like I made, or a gap that I could have filled earlier on, was having something like that, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And it was in my mind, I just didn't do it. I was busy having a good time traveling the world. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Pedro Addo, he kind of reinvigorated this 5-day challenge. It had been around for maybe like since 2016, 2018. Pedro took off, and, Myron and, some other people have kind of put their own spin on it, and it's just blown up. It's been a great model. People respond so well to it. It's really great. And then you do a 5-day in-person delivery event where you deliver the coaching at that event.
So I do my challenge virtually. And then I used to do international retreats before the pandemic. I would Paris, London, New York, and now I'm going to do my first one in the last 3 years is going to be in Valencia in Spain in May for 2 days. So it's like, and then that's for my clients, and I'll open up a couple of spots then for people who I'm familiar with, who maybe are not in one of my programs but know would benefit from it.
Wow, that's amazing, Valencia. You get to travel the world on that. Yeah, I'm looking at my calendar right now. I'm speaking in April. I'm speaking almost, I think there's 5 days that I'm not speaking in April. So yeah, it's a lot. And I'll be doing the podcast and events and the coaching calls and all of that. So it gets busy, but it's so fun.
Marathon for sure. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I average 2 seminars a day for 10 years.
Incredible.
So I think quicker. For me, it's like when I'm out there, kind of like Tony, like I go home at night, I'm tired, but then I get more creative because I document experiences and I create content off of that. So, when you actually have a talk, you have to, do things with humans, and you generate more wisdom from that, actually being in the arena, as they would say. So you show people how to design their talks. How do you, well, I guess you've been able to, do you have a big team? Because you've been able to scale, which is, we're kind of coming full circle here. You went, how you influence yourself, how you see it, what you do with sales, your psychology, how you think about sales. And now you are at scale. You're a leader of leaders, not a neater of neaters, a leader of leaders out there in the world, showing people how to do this. You have a pretty simple business, and you've done quite well.
Thank you.
Just you? Do you have a team?
Yes, I do. And I think team was one of the biggest challenges for me. I went through so many VAs, just weren't the right match. And then I found this profile test through a group called Genius U. Have you ever heard of Roger Hamilton?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So I did their profile test, which shows you what type of entrepreneur you are. And I did that, and I was just like, oh my God, no wonder this has been so hard for me. And it was from doing that I then started to look for specific peeps, because it gives you like the type of people you need in your team. So when I did that, then I built my team based on what I learned from there. And honestly, like I've never had a better team. It's never been more organized. Like operationally, it's just going so smoothly. So that was a big thing. And that's like was getting past that 300K mark where it was all about team. So I kind of was like, in this like up, down, couldn't really get past that until I got my team in place. But yeah, it's all working really well now, thank God.
Yeah. How much did you do revenue-wise off your last challenge?
My last challenge, I believe it was 50. And then I got another client on the back of something I posted about it. So it was about 75.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, that's
based on having small numbers. So I can't wait until I start to like triple the numbers so I can help more people and get more people out in stages.
Amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about sales, influence, what you're up to, that I should have asked you in this interview? So there's like a message you would like to see out to the world as it relates to speaking, influence, sales, psychology. What would you tell the listeners? Like, what do you feel they need to know in order to just show up bigger in life?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, when it comes to speaking, I think people have the tendency to be like, okay, now I'm going to go create a talk and I'm going to become a great speaker. But like, just start speaking and see that maybe you're not that good. But by speaking as much as possible, you're going to get good really, really fast. Because I can promise you, I was not a great speaker, but I just find I put together a piece of content and I just kept rinsing and repeating it and rinsing it. And almost then that you're dancing with it. And then that gives you so much more confidence. And the other thing is if you do that and you get 2 or 3 clients from it and you have a 25K offer, then that's like 75 grand. And I guarantee your confidence will explode if you do that. And then you'll be able to find way more stages. So yeah, I just give yourself a chance to feel like, okay, maybe I'm not great right now, but I'm going to get better really fast. Especially if you're a savvy entrepreneur, you're already influencing people, like you already have some success. Just believe that you can do this too.
Got to get in the game. Where can folks find you, find out more about you, kind of see what you're up to?
Yeah, so the last week of every month is when I host the Speak More, Make More challenge. So that's like by far the best way to come and have fun with me and get to know me, especially in the VIP, because we do an hour of additional coaching every day, which is awesome. And then other than that, you can find me on social. I'd love if you wanted to connect with me there. And then if you want to check me out, like what I do in terms of my work, you can look at moira.ie. .ie is for Ireland, by the way, just so everything.
Nice. I wouldn't have guessed that. We'll put that all in the show notes for everybody, and we'll have detailed notes on this. I took a lot from this. I've got some notes here. So hopefully this was as valuable for you and you listening, and it'll inspire you to speak more so you can make more. Go out there and share this big message with the world, and be fearless and relentless and share your purpose and get paid for it. So this has been another episode of the Everything is Influence podcast. Thank you, Moira. And to all of you listening, I'll see you again very soon. Take care.